I'm delighted to be joined here by Graeme and Heather, who are part of the CivTech team, the challenge managers in the team, and they'll be able to say a bit more about what they do shortly. Julia is providing support for the session today as well. So if you have any technical issues, please feel free to message her directly in the chat. We essentially, it's probably worth just being aware of what the overall purpose of the Digital Enablers for Natural Capital is, of which this session is the first webinar. So the Digital Enablers for Natural Capital is one of 4 topic hubs within the Scottish Forum for Natural Capital. And the particular focus for Digital Enablers is on contributing to an enabling environment for natural capital in Scotland through exploration and knowledge sharing around nature technologies. We are finding our way as a hub, and your views in helping to shape that would definitely be very valuable. The purpose of this particular session is to tease out the pivotal questions around the collection and interpretation of biodiversity data to develop into challenge ideas for the next CivTech challenge, which is coming up shortly in the summer, CivTech 10. We have been drawing on the results of a survey that we carried out in advance of launching the Digital Enablers Hub, and findings are available in a link in which I think Julia is going to post in the chat. Some of the key things that came out of that survey, which are relevant for today's session, was the need for transparency in interpretation and verification, the importance of longevity of platforms, and in addressing human factors such as the uncertainty of value when it comes to these kind of things for decision makers. So that's just a brief intro. I'll now pass over to our CivTech colleagues, Graeme and Heather, who will be able to take us through the workshop today.
Cool. Thanks, Ruchir, and good to see you all. I recognise quite a few of the names and faces here, so good to see you. Those of you that I know, good to see. Those of you that I haven't met, look for. Oh, Mark's on tour. Very glamorous. Sorry, just kind of distracted me there because for whatever reason you fully appeared in my screen driving through what looks like some lovely countryside. But so yeah, as Ruchir said, I originally started working with Scottish Wildlife Trust back in CivTech 8. They were co-sponsors within a couple of challenges there. And we've kind of continued conversations since then. And as Ruchir kind of touched on, CivTech 10 will be launching this summer. So ideally from this workshop and probably subsequent ones, it would be great to get at least kind of one challenge relating to this kind of topic area. But what I would say is it's also part of kind of building a pipeline of challenges, even if we don't get something or we only get 1 or 2 for this time around. If there's still a pipeline there, those of you that are aware of CivTech can then kind of think of how potentially it could help your organisation. One thing as well today that is slightly different to the kind of usual workshops that we do is that we have a mix of both kind of third and public sector colleagues and also kind of teams and colleagues from the private sector. So it'll be a kind of interesting mix. It may mean that kind of subsequent workshops become more focused on public sector, but I'm really keen to see what comes out today, as I think it could be quite interesting. So my colleague Heather is joining us. She was having some problems getting into Zoom. As I'm sure other colleagues within public sector organisations are aware, Zoom and kind of certainly SG laptops, I'm sure some of the others, they don't always play very nicely. So Heather will join us, but you're stuck with me for the intro part. So I'm going to show a few slides. Just a lot of people on the call I recognise, so are probably kind of familiar with CivTech, but just by way of an intro, I'm going to kind of talk through a few slides. Give me a second. Let me just, here we go.
I think Heather has joined us now.
Okay, cool. I haven't used Zoom for a while, so I will look a bit like kind of tech dad at points, and you probably will get close-ups of my face that you don't really need as I try and read the tiny, tiny bits on my screen. Okay, can you all see that presentation? Although it'll be in edit mode for the time being. Yeah, okay. So I go into slideshow. This is going well. Okay, so what is CivTech? It is a Scottish Government programme. For those that aren't aware, we've been around for about 8 years now. Started as a very small kind of pilot, essentially. And it came about as kind of people were wanting to see how you could take kind of private sector accelerator ideas and apply them to problems that the public sector faced. And one of the kind of key mantras that if you have kind of joined one of these sessions before, you're probably sick of hearing me and colleagues saying it, is how do you procure what you don't know exists? So CivTech is a procurement exercise, but it's very different to a kind of traditional one where you write a detailed spec, you go out with that to kind of usual suppliers, and you're looking for them to respond to kind of what's in that spec. Where we are is we start with a problem. We want to kind of speak to organisations, usually third and public sector, who have identified that they've got problems and there's no easy solution out there on the market. So that's really where we start from. And as I say, that's why today's workshop is slightly different in that we've got a group of people that we would usually be speaking to from a sponsor perspective, as well as some of the companies that would likely respond. And in the case of a couple here, I think Rethink and Credit Nature have responded to CivTech challenges and are developing solutions as part of that. So this is the process that we go through. So essentially, we start off by defining challenges. That's working with our third and public sector sponsor teams to kind of refine problems that they face. Sometimes organizations will come to us with quite a good idea of what the problem is, and it doesn't take too much refinement. Other times we start at this kind of level where we've got a really broad theme around kind of biodiversity, data collection, interpretation, but it's trying to tease out, as Ruchir said, what are the problems within that that can be kind of turned into CivTech challenges and solved that way. And we are as well, of course, aware that not every problem in this area is going to be suitable for CivTech. It's not always going to be the right route. There might be other work underway. There might be solutions that just people aren't that aware of. So not everything that we talk about today will be suitable for CivTech, but hopefully we'll be able to kind of tease out a few kind of priorities. Once we've refined and defined a challenge, if you've seen them presented in the past, it's usually framed as how can technology help us do X, Y, or Z. So I think, if I remember rightly, the challenge that Rethink Carbon responded to was along the lines of how can technology help land managers make better decisions on the use of their land. That's very high level, but hopefully it'll give you a flavour. Once we've got to that point, we launch the challenges on Public Contracts Scotland, and they're open to anyone to apply. You'll see that kind of box under there, and under Invite Solutions goes from individuals all the way through to PLCs, and that is a true kind of reflection of the people that respond to CivTech challenges. In the current round, CivTech 9, we have everything from a company that was set up specifically to respond to CivTech. It was 2 individual consultants who have now got their own company, all the way through to potentially the largest GovTech company in the world, certainly in Europe, and everything in between. So it's a really broad mix. Sweet spot probably is kind of smaller startups and scale-ups. That was kind of intentional. One of the goals behind CivTech, as well as solving problems for public sector organisations, was to make it easier for smaller organisations to kind of win government contracts. I think historically it's always been larger organisations. There's been a lot of blockers if you have to provide 2 or 3 years of accounts, that kind of thing. So it's that kind of startup, SME, scale-up sector of the market is really one that has kind of done well through CivTech, and I think is a positive outcome in terms of what the programme was intended to do. Once we have a range of proposals, those are reviewed between the sponsor and the CivTech team, and then they're whittled down through interviews to the exploration stage. So we take 3 companies through to that. It's only 3 weeks. It's a chance for them to meet the sponsors for the first time and kind of test some of the assumptions of the original applications. at the end of that period, they resubmit their applications updated based on what they've learned. And we'd usually take one company into the accelerator, which is now 18 weeks. At the end of that, we're not expecting a finished product. It's just really an MVP that we're looking for. There's a demo day as well. CivTech 9's demo day is taking place in May. We're still confirming kind of exactly what the kind of ticketing availability type thing will be. But if we can invite people along, we will do. So please keep an eye out for that. And then the final stage there is not a mandatory one, but if the sponsor, the CivTech team, the company feel that there's potential kind of to take their MVP forward and develop it into something that's commercially implementable, we have that kind of pre-commercial stage. So I'm going to pause there. As I say, I am mindful that quite a few people on this call have probably heard this before or variations of it. Does anyone have any questions at this point? No. Cool. Heather, I know that you've joined us. Do you want to quickly say hello so folk know who you are, and if there's anything that you want to add, you can do.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, apologies for being so late. Of nightmare IT issues. Yeah, I'm Heather. I work with Graeme in the CivTech innovation team. I'm also working with Credit Nature and Scottish Wildlife Trust on a challenge in CivTech 8. We are currently scoping our CivTech 10 cohort over the next couple of months. So we're really keen to see if we can get something out of this to be part of the portfolio and continue in our Innovate for Nature theme.
Cool. That's a very cool background, by the way. We don't have that on Teams. Need to switch. Cool. Right. So I'll move on and get more into kind of what we're going to do today, if PowerPoint will behave itself. So, as I said, the focus of today is not to come up with solutions, and I know that is going to be difficult for a huge number of people on this call because you're all in jobs where you're paid to come up with solutions. Some of you have come up with solutions for past CivTech problems, but really what I want people to be thinking about today is kind of starting with the problem. And we're going to kind of go through an exercise in a minute to start kind of capturing some of these. So what I want you to think about is one problem in one line, and this will make more sense once I show you the easy retro page, and one outcome or indicator that measures success. You'll see here there's nothing about solutions. I'm going to give you an example in a sec. This is one that came out of a workshop I did about 18 months ago and has got absolutely nothing to do with a CivTech challenge, but I thought it kind of captured this way of thinking quite well. So this was one I did with a local authority. One of the ladies on the call said that her teenage son, struggles to get out of bed every morning. For her, the outcome that would show this problem had been solved was that he catches the school bus and she doesn't have to give him a lift. Now, you'll see there's no talk here of how she's going to do that. There's nothing about the solution. There's nothing about setting an alarm early, throwing water over his face, punching him, whatever it might be. But the outcome, the success for her was that he would catch the school bus. She wouldn't have to give him a lift and she'd get some time back in the morning. So the other thing that I would ask you to think about once we get into kind of the exercise is why does this problem matter, and have there been previous attempts to solve it? So in this kind of slightly non-CivTechy case, why does the problem matter? Because it's disrupting this lady's morning routine. So anyway, I'll stop banging on about this woman and her lazy son. What I'll do is just I'll let you to take 2 or 3 minutes and just think of a problem and an outcome for that. It could be something relating to your work. It could be something like this that's more from kind of personal life. And just as a heads up, I will be picking on people. Heather will probably pick on you first, seeing as you should know how to do this.
So in terms of the one problem and what the outcome is, so what we're wanting people to have a think about here is it doesn't have to be work related. So for example, like the problem that I often think about and have been experiencing over the winter, which I'm sure many people have, is feeling cold in my flat. And I've tried lots of different ways in order to not feel cold, involving putting the heating on more often, but then that's expensive, so that's a bit difficult to do. I've tried using a heated blanket. That's not been very successful either, because I've that makes me sleepy, which isn't good. I've tried hot water bottles. Again, there's problems with those. But really, what the outcome that I want to feel is not looking at any of these potential solutions. It's actually I want to feel warm in my flat when I'm working. So it's not that's how we want people to think today, is the outcome they want to achieve, rather than potential ways in order to help them solve that problem.
I could just recap on the kind of initial the top line findings from the survey. That's helpful.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly share my screen. So the link to this is in the chat. But we went out in December, January to ask what is good biodiversity data, what are the risks, and the main issues. And we had 36 responses, and these are the key findings. We did use multiple choice, so we were kind of leading the responses to an extent, but there are some free text answers as well that gave us some insight. So probably not news to you that the kind of key idea of good biodiversity data is it's transparently interpreted, independently verified, science-based, transparently sourced, and open source. The key risks: longevity of platforms, cost of subscription, and then the key risks identified, I've grouped them here: accessibility, accuracy, integrity. This is ethical integrity rather than data integrity. Technology issues, human factors, which I think is particularly interesting, and obviously climate impacts. I'll let you have a look at the other responses and examples in more detail, and I'll hand back to Graeme.
So what would be an example of a problem there? That's an open question to anyone on the call, if you're thinking about what are kind of
if anyone can step in.
Could I add? So it's Stuart Bond from Wales here, and we've got a different approach to net gain. So we have net benefit, and I guess that you have something again different in Scotland. And you know what investors really want is they want to be able to bundle and stack this stuff together, and they want to be able to interoperate between nations. So finding some ways where this evidence is interoperable and it's collected in a way that is enables investment, I think is a really, really important consideration, especially when we consider very, very high profile ecosystems like the Y, which then snake in and out of England and Wales. These become highly pertinent.
So if we kind of put it into that format, the kind of problem, the outcome, the problem at the moment is there's these different ways of kind of measuring benefit and a positive outcome. However we do it, the positive outcome would be that it's easy for investors to have kind of clear evidence to base their investment decisions on. That would be
I don't think that they're ever going to be the same. I think this is the first challenge. Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to be the same, but investors want to be able to invest, for example, on catchment areas which cuts across particular geographies, and we'd like to be able to ensure that they can invest in the entire catchment rather than just, oh, we have to do it differently here and we have to do it differently here.
Cool. Okay. I think this would be a good point probably to get into Easy Retro. Oh, a couple of people have noticed that the cards are blurred on Easy Retro. That is me that's done that. So the reason I usually use the blurred part is when we get into the kind of full problem storming part of it, I've found it's quite good if people can only see what they're writing initially. One of the reasons being, I've seen it happen in the past. I don't think it's so much an issue here in this case, but sometimes if you've got different seniority levels of seniority in a call, people will be put off by that. But the key thing is that someone might start typing something, see that there's a similar problem on there, and then think, oh, well, that's already been covered. But what is the interesting part is someone that sometimes in that case, the outcomes that people identify to the same or a similar problem could be completely different. So I'd rather capture those and then we can kind of group them afterwards. So yeah, that's me using my godly powers and Easy Retro to stop you seeing what everyone else is writing just for the time being. But don't worry, you'll get to see it all eventually.